Buckle up. You are listening to Musicians and Beyond with Mark Lawhorn and Jonn Savannah, where we bring you the backstage info on the life, the lyrics, and the long journeys of the music industry. Mark, last week we had
Tyson Haynes.
Tyson Haynes from Canada, who found his way to Nashville.
Thank God he traveled to Nashville, didn't like the scene up in Canada, and wanted to do a little bit more. He ventured down, and he has made it in my book.
Anyone who hasn't heard the episode, go back to episode 95 and check out Tyson Haynes.
And if you get a chance and you're in Nashville, find him when he's playing at Lucky Bastards down on Broadway. You will not be disappointed. He is one hell of a performer.
He really is. He really is. And today's performer is awesome as well. But before we get to our performer, I want to dedicate this whole podcast to David Sanborn, who passed away today. He was a Grammy winner, saxophone player, and he was a huge influence on today's guest.
The reason he played the sax.
Yeah. So I want to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, Jonn Savannah.
Hi. Hi.
Jonn, welcome. Thanks for coming in, man.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, the Dave Sanborn thing hit hard because he definitely, when he came on the scene, there was no one really had that sound. So it was just, it's devastating. I met him once. I didn't even realize I was in the band on stage with him. He was part of a horn section for the Nelson Mandela Festival I did when they were trying to get him out. And yeah, I've got a picture of a kind of slightly out of focus picture of me with him, and it's so long ago, but it's like, oh my God, I'm standing next to someone who I really revere. So it's tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that is tough.
And I'm no sax player, but
yeah, it's
put me on that road.
It's a tragedy for the whole music.
And we are very sorry to hear that. Do something real quick because people at home are going to be wondering, right? Some people are going to recognize him. Some people are going to know the bands that he's played in, but they may know him by another name. So early on, he played in the Sinceros. He played with the Squeeze. He played with a few others. But at some point, you changed your name from Jonn
Snow to Jonn Savannah.
And how did that occur and why?
So I never really liked the name. I'm actually born Donald Harry Snow, and Donald Duck, Harry Hare. Donald also has some other meanings in the UK, which answer the rhyming slang. If anyone knows rhyming slang, you can figure out what it is. And having the surname Snow, the second name Snow, there were so many people called Snow in the music industry. Mark Snow, Matt Snow, all these people called Snow. And for me, Don Snow always sounded like a plumber's name. Nothing against plumbers, but it always sounded a little bit like Don Snow's coming to do the plumbing. So I was never a big fan of it, although my parents obviously were. So a couple of guys were producing some tracks for me, with me, and the tracks that were ending up sounding like a more kind of American 80s rock band kind of thing. And they said, Don Snow, it doesn't fit. I said, well, maybe I'll change my name. And they're like, would you? I said, yeah, why not? I've always wanted to. So at the time I thought, album cover, Jonn Savannah Snow, hyphenated. I could have two N's in Jonn, two N's in Savannah. It's going to look great on the album cover. And they're like, yeah, that's awesome. So I'm like, all right, I'll change my name. And they're thinking, yeah, he won't. So I did. The next day, I thought, that's it. I said to everyone, change my name, Jonn Savannah Snow. And they're like, excuse me. Yeah, call me John from now. And they're like, sling your up, mate. We're not doing that. I said, yeah, no, I'm John. I was working with Van Morrison at the time, and he introduces whoever does the solo, he introduces them after it. Yeah, Ronnie Johnson on guitar, Ronnie Johnson. Yeah, Nicky Scott, it's all this kind of stuff in it. And Don Snow, Hammond, Don Snow, keyboards, So I said to the musical director in the band, could you let Van know? Because he was sort of rarefied air most of the time. We didn't really hang with him. Let him know I've changed my name to Jonn Savannah Snow. And he said, sorry, you did what? I said, yeah, I've changed my name legally to Jonn Savannah Snow, which I hadn't done at the time. So I get on stage and, he points at me and he goes, do a solo. So I do a solo and he goes, Jonn stand. Next time, I said, do a solo. Jonn Savannah, Snow. He couldn't get it. So at the end of the gig, I went up to him and said, look, just Jonn Savannah. Just say Jonn Savannah. Oh, that's easy, Jonn Savannah. Okay. So from then on, Jonn Savannah. So I thought, you know what? That's a lot. It's a little less unwieldy.
So you were in Squeeze?
I was in Squeeze 3 different times. 3 different stints. I went for the audition and didn't get it to start with. There was another guy got the job. And after a week, they realized he was a very busy jazz keyboard player. So I got the call back and then got in the band and did the Sweets from a Stranger album with them, with Black Coffee in Bed and various other things. And Annie Get You Gone was another track that we did. Toured with them for a couple of years. That was 81, I think, to 83. And then they split the band up, which was fatal because they were just cresting at that point.
Yeah.
And then I met Glenn Tilbrook from the band sometime afterwards, just chance meeting in the street in London. And he said, hey, you know, do you fancy doing some work? I said, yeah, it'd be great. Toured the Play album, which was really good. And he actually let me play some guitar, which was unheard of because he's a great guitar player, but he normally does everything. But there were a couple of tracks with acoustic guitar that he wanted to play and sing. And he said, would you play lead on it? I'm like, yeah. So that was fun. And then the third time I got a call for the Ridiculous album. We were doing some songwriting weeks and Glenn was there and we kind of chatted a little bit. He wrote some songs and said, you know, are you up for doing some stuff in the studio? I said, yeah. So I sang on the album, played a bit of piano. And then they were touring that. So we did the Ridiculous tour, and I did that. I think it was about seven weeks or something, and that was it. I don't think I could be in Squeeze anymore. I've done it to death. So.
Yeah. You mentioned the Squeeze at the height of really, you guys were really climbing, and it was the height of the new wave.
Yeah.
Fit right into what you were doing.
Yeah.
Why break the band up then?
I think that they've been touring and recording and playing constantly since they started. They just never really had a break. And there were some issues with personnel in the band. I'm not going to go into the details, but they thought if we're going to get rid of this person in the band, there's no one there from the original band. It's just me and Glenn and Chris are the only people left. But they said to me, look, we're going to reform in a couple of months and do a soul band. And at the time, it's like, oh, this is great. I love soul. That'd be fantastic. So they didn't want to just keep churning out. It took them 6 months before they regrouped. And everyone was like, what are you doing? The drummer went crazy saying, we've spent all this time and effort to get to this point, and now you're pulling the rug at the worst time. We'd just done Madison Square Garden, which sold out in 3 hours or something. We did Nassau Coliseum, all kinds of massive gigs. And then the Jamaica Sunsplash thing was the final gig. And then, you know, they got the Difford and Tilbrook thing together. Pino Palladino playing bass, who's awesome, ridiculous. He plays with John Mayer and whoever else now. Forgotten his name. D'Angelo. He was on that D'Angelo album. Great players in the band and everything. And I went in to start work on it, and I really didn't like the songs, and I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say I'm into this. So I told Chris the second day, I said, I can't do it. He said, you sure? I said, yeah, I can't. So there was a lot of personnel issues within the band, and it just wasn't really for me. But then, you know, if they called it Squeeze, and I think kept the name of Squeeze going, they might have, you know, salvaged some of that goodwill they had. But it took then they had a big hit with Hourglass. I think after that, some years later, they kind of did more. But it's almost like they had that potential to be massive, and just pulled the rug at the wrong time. So. But they're still doing it. They're still doing gigs. They're still great live, and Glenn still sings great, and Chris's lyrics are like no one else. So, you know, I've got a lot of respect for what they've done through the years, and I'm glad I did it. But there was a point where I'm like, I can't play that song anymore. I can't play that song anymore. I can't. Yeah.
You've been in touch with a lot of different genres. I mean, even Roger Daltrey.
Yeah, I got a call to do his album. He did a solo album called, I can't remember what his first solo album was. It was fairly successful and fairly well kind of respected. And then he did doing a second solo album. I got the call to be in the band. Once again, phenomenal players. Tony Beard was playing drums and John Siegler playing bass. Clem Clemson was playing guitar. So really serious musicians. And we were in recording it for a couple of weeks, and I thought, I've got a perfect song for this album, because the songs that he was doing, in my opinion, my humble opinion, were crap. They really weren't very good at all. You know, and he'd have meetings and he'd say, I'm playing. I'd listen to the songs going, that's just not very good. So I kept saying to him, I said, Roger, because I called him Roger. He said, Mr. Daltrey, I should have called him. Roger, I said, I've got a great song for you. He says, yeah, leave me alone. I said, no, I've got a really good song for you. He said, yeah, whatever. So towards the end of the second week, he finally had a bit of downtime, and I had a cassette. That's how long ago it was. I said, look, you should hear this. This is perfect for you. And he's like, all right. Put it in, started listening. He was like, this is really good. I said, I know. He said, this is perfect. So they recorded it. And that, for me, was kind of a high point of the album. They did a good version of it, different from the one that I'd already done in Germany for the German record company. But he got Clem Clemson to do the kind of big rock guitar thing and all the rest of it. So it was a great thing to be involved in. Yeah.
You mentioned something that's really interesting when you have a song and you're hooked on it. It's your song, it's your baby, and you hand it to someone and they change it up a bit. You can appreciate that while still appreciating your version.
Yes, there was. Probably shouldn't tell tales about that. He changed a couple of lines in the lyrics because he said there's one line that's like a needle in your side, and he didn't like the needle reference, and something else he wasn't too keen on. So he said, I've just changed a couple of lines. And I said, oh, it's fine. Great, no problem. So the album's finished. It's all mixed. It's ready to be put out. And I get a call from the accountant who was kind of looking after him at the time and said, yeah, he wants a quarter of the track. I said, what do you mean? Well, because he feels like he's part songwriter. I said, look, this is ridiculous. It's been released in Germany as a finished track. He changed a couple of lines, a couple of words here and there, nothing much, but no, that's ridiculous. He wasn't involved in songwriting at all. It was that, change a word, steal a third kind of thing that was going on. So, he's like, well, he wants a quarter. So I said, all right, we'll take it off the album then. What do you mean? I said, just, no. The answer is no. Put the phone down. So I get a call about 15 minutes later. He says, yeah, he just wants to put his name as a co-writer on the album. He's not bothered about percentage. I'm like, do whatever you want on the copy. We say whatever you like, but it's, I'm not a fan of that kind of thing.
Right.
If you write something, if you're in the room when it's being written, that's fine. But this kind of like, look, I've changed that word there. Well, what you've done isn't even as good as what I did. So, it's just the way the industry works. So. No,
how much? That's a question I want to ask about how the industry works there, because it's an interesting point you bring up. The accountant calls you. How much do you think Roger actually had to say, I want money off of this? He probably wanted his name, and the accountant said, well, you should get a little bit of money out of this.
I have no idea.
That would be an interesting thing to learn. Later on, Roger looking at you go, I never asked for money.
Well, when he watches this podcast, when Roger watches this, give me a call.
Absolutely. Roger, reach out. Let us know the backside.
Yeah. No, he's, it's like, it isn't for the money. It can't be for the money.
Right.
He's got, rich as Croesus. He's got plenty. Right. So I think it's that thing of, I want to be a songwriter. You've written a song, that feeling of I'm a songwriter now. However, go ahead. Speaking
of songwriting, now would be a good time if we heard some songwriting from Jonn Savannah.
Let's do it. Let's hear one.
What do you think you want to hear? I've heard he's got a great song about the backseat of a car called Billy and Jenny.
All right, let's hear it. Jonn Savannah, Billy and Jenny.
Billy and Jenny were getting it on in the backseat of my car. Billy was cool and funny. Jenny didn't want him to go too far, but he went too far. 2 kids later, they're still together and very much in love. But me and you, we hardly grew any closer. Not like Billy and Jenny. No, no. They've got everything. Billy got drunk at a high school dance. We tried to carry him home, but he acted tough and shrugged us off when picking fights in the parking lot. Ooh, and look what he got. 2 black eyes and a busted lip, and he carried them round like a trophy. Jenny loved him even more, but that's not how we were. Not like Billy and Jenny. No, no. They've got everything. take a look at the way we are. Whoa. Are you happy with life so far? Yeah, but not like Billy and Jenny. No, no. 'Cause they've got everything. Jenny likes to talk about getting old. 2 swing chairs on the porch. But let's be honest here, you and I will never be Billy and Jenny. No, no. 'Cause they've got everything. They've got it all.
Jonn Savannah with Billy and Jenny. How did you come up with the lyrics for that one?
Oh, that's interesting. The lyrics for Billy and Jenny, they just flowed into my head. For me, I'd never actually written a story song before. They were all kind of stream of consciousness stuff and emotions and whatever else. And this, for some reason, I've just got this image of a couple of people in the back of the car. And then, a lot of people, it was at a songwriting week, and a lot of people were using people's names to, create the idea of a song, someone's name, the name of a famous person or whatever, a film star, pop star, whatever else, they're using people's names. And it just, Billy and Jenny, oh, okay. I don't know anyone called, 2 people called Billy and Jenny, but it seemed to fit. And then the thing that was strange as well, it was a very Nashville-oriented songwriting week. A lot of the people there were from Nashville, and they have that particular way of storytelling, which I really didn't do as well. So I thought, all right, I'm kind of surrounded by it. Let me give it a try. And it started to take shape. And it's always had a bit of is the word dichotomy. The fact that the song, even though it's about Billy and Jenny, the other thing that's going on is that, yeah, but we're not like them. They've got everything. It's you and me. We haven't got that. We want that. We'll never be like them. They seem to be the golden children sort of thing. So I never knew whether it really worked. I still don't. There's a lot of underconfidence with songwriting generally, and it takes very little to prick your bubble.
I think it was a great song, great story. Like, the way it starts out, you think that it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the song, it's, true love forever.
Yeah,
so.
they had a great life. And I'd never really got into that whole thing of, there was one, I think it was that particular time that I went, Chris Difford used to do these songwriting weeks. And I think one of the Nashville writers, I got to write with a couple of people there who really knew their craft. They're incredible writers. And I was playing a couple of songs, and the guy came up and he said, yeah, I wanted to say something about your songs. I'm like, what? And he said, no. He said, the problem with your songs is that they have no furniture in them. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, furniture, there's no objects, there's no things in them. They're all things you're thinking about, or wistful, reminiscences. He said, you want some things, you want a red guitar in there. You want, a blind man in the corner. I'm like, bing, it's off with a light bulb. And then it's like, yeah. And now I say to other people when I hear some of their songwriting, you got no furniture in it. They look at me with the same way that I looked at that guy. What do you mean? So I think that, it kind of brings the song to a real place rather than just, let me get inside yet. Sometimes it works not to do that. But generally, if you've got a real object or a place or whatever, and Chris Difford was the king of that kitchen sink drama, I've got a toothbrush or whatever else the song is. It's all real. It's all, you're immediately there. When he says 4 things about a situation, you're immediately there. Some of the places that Chris went were so Squeeze-like. They were so kind of particular to that band. And though he's written for a lot of other people as well, and he can write across the board, there were several things I got to look at a lot of his lyrics and wrote several songs with him. And there are certain things you think that's very kind of South London and, down a pub and have a few beers and everything. But he writes like no one else. He's a lyricist like nobody else I've ever come across. Elvis Costello has got that similar kind of thing. And Chris is like a faucet, a tap, as we call them in England. It's just like a faucet being turned. I've never seen anything like it. We'd write, and musical stuff would come together fairly quickly. And 10 minutes, you got a bit of an intro and a bit of a first verse going or whatever. And you look across, he's got 15 verses done in the same time as we've done that, and then he's got another 15, and they're all good. They all work, whether they're correct or you like them. It's like, well, they all scan, they all sit well. He's ridiculous. What's
the very strangest one that you've come up with?
Song or situation?
Situation of thinking up a song.
Of thinking one up. Well, I have one thing with Lamont Dozier from Dozier Holland, who wrote all those great Motown hits. And I got a call from his manager at the time, said he needs a piano player. He wants to just write, but he wants someone just to kind of flesh things out. So I said, yeah, fine. Nice guy, just sitting, I've got this idea, play this, or do a chord here, whatever. He said, that's fine. He's writing stuff down. And I'm starving. At the time, it's like, feed me. I'm falling over here. I've got to have something to eat. Nothing. He's not stopping. It's going straight through. And I think the second day when I went in, I brought a thermos of soup because I'm like, dude, I can't go 11 hours without eating. Anyway. So the second day he's working on some, I got a few chords going for him. He's saying, oh, do that and do a G sharp there, whatever. And then he said, yeah, I'm kind of stumped. And I said, well, you could do this. How about that? How about this? I thought, I'm co-writing this song. I wrote the chords for the chorus. I wrote the chords for the bridge, and I wrote the chords for the end of the verse. I thought, hey, this is pretty good. Things finished. He said, yeah, that's great. That's really good. So finished the song and everything. I'm thinking, all right, called the management up. Said, I want to discuss what the split should be on that song. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I co-wrote one of the songs. He said, but he's Lamont Dozier. No, you didn't. So what are you talking about? He said, no. Invisible by Alison Moyet, #1 hit in the UK.
No kidding.
That's my part of that's mine. So you get used to that kind of rip-off and injustice and thinking, well, you can't do a thing about it at the time. Yes, he's Lamont Dozier and I'm not. So that was pretty strange. But yeah, there's
pretty crappy thing to do to someone.
Yeah, it's par for the course. It happens all the time. There's so many of those kinds of stories where people are like, yeah, they're my songs. They're not yours. But I wrote that. No, you didn't. Well, how am I going to prove it? I've got an old cassette, with me chatting or whatever.
Right. So you almost have to record the session to prove it.
That's what started happening after a while. It's like, wow. Put that up, put it in record. Yeah. Put another one in, just keep recording.
You wrote a song that I absolutely love. I think it's a great song. Waterfall. How did you come up with the lyrics in the song?
That was another songwriting week. Same thing. Another story song for me, which is, when I thought about doing this, I'm not really a front man generally. So it's like, all right, well, let me play some songs and sing. And it tends to be covers, and other people say, oh, I can do a version of that, version of that. I thought, well, I should be doing some of my own stuff as well. But apart from a few songs, they're more kind of orchestrated, and when they were recorded, they got parts that made them work. And to do them just on a piano or just on a guitar, it was a lot more difficult. And I thought, well, that one works, this one works. But that whole thing of, I still think it's one of my favorite lines in "Blowing My Own Trumpet." I let you ride my bicycle with a saddle way down low. I mean, that for me was like, oh, look, I can see that. I can actually see that physically happening.
That's the furniture.
There's the furniture. So that's the whole Nashville influence there. That it just came out. The problem I had with the song was when I recorded it, it's like 5.5 minutes long because I wanted to put a great Nashville guitar solo in there, and it was a little slow. And I'm thinking, yeah, this really drags. And I, at the time, couldn't figure out a way of saying, cut this, cut that. Now, I think I edit better than I did. Back then, it was like, I don't know what to do. So interesting. That's something that's changed.
Yeah. I think now would be a good time to hear
Waterfall.
Down a dusty little back road,
There's a place we used to go. We'd be sitting by the fireside, watch the candles burning low, and I would tell you stories when they'd make no sense at all. And I would always picture you standing by the waterfall. We sat upon a hillside where the tall sunflowers grow. I watched you ride my bicycle with the saddle way down low. We took a walk beside a river, where the willow leaves would fall, and I would always picture you standing by the waterfall. When I said I thought you didn't care, I was so misunderstood. Now I know that I have lost your love for good, but still I hear your footsteps as they echo down that hall. Now I will never be with you, standing by the waterfall. No, I will never be with you. I can never be with you, standing by the waterfall. I will never be with you, standing by the waterfall.
Jonn Savannah with Waterfall. Mark.
That was fantastic, John. Nice song.
No.
You're
Yes.
producing. You're also you. Where we met you, you sit on some shows here and there and offer
Yes.
your critique, and
Yeah.
but you've done it at a higher level than Seabrook Idol.
Well, he was on
Yeah.
American Idol, helping out the
Yeah, that was a kind
voice.
of, there's a producer who was the trumpet player with Van Morrison at the time, and he, great producer as well, James McMillan, was asked to produce a couple of albums for the American Idol series. And he said, can you tune vocals? I said, what do you mean? He said, can you use auto-tune to tune the vocals? I said, I've never done it. So, well, you better learn, because you're going to be doing a lot of it. So, and if anyone doesn't know what auto-tune is by now, God, surely everyone knows what it is. But it has a graphic component where you can go in and write where the pitch should be of the note, and then it brings the pitch of whatever anyone sung up to where it should be. And if you just, I don't know what it's like now, but back then, if you use the automatic algorithm, you could hear it. I mean, a lot of records now, look at me, I'm ancient. A lot of tracks, downloads, streamings, you can hear, a lot of the Nashville stuff, I can hear that the auto-tune, it's not even trying to sound natural. It sounds weird. You can hear these weird kind of quantized drops and everything. So I learned it and really got the hang of what it was. It took a long time, but he kept throwing tracks at me saying, tune this vocal, tune that. And finally he said, yeah, you got it. He said, that's pretty good. He said, I can't really hear that it's been tuned. So I think it was, can't remember which season it was, but we had Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard and people like that. And Ruben Studdard actually got a Grammy for something that I tuned the vocals on. So I technically have a Grammy. Not really. They never sent me one. So, James would be in LA. What they started doing was after the end of the show, the American Idol show, they drag them all into the studio and they would record the song that they'd done on the show. It would then be produced and released on iTunes, I think the next day or something crazy.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people were fledgling singers, to say the least. Some of them never really been in front of a microphone in the studio before. So James would get in touch and say, I would be in the UK, he was in LA, and he said, I've got a real bear of a one for you. And he'd send something over. I'm like, none of this is in tune. This is terrible. The guy cannot sing. This is all over the place.
Has no ear.
No ear whatsoever. But I mean, no, it sang okay on the TV, but in the studio, nervous, and they only had a little bit of time. So he would email me the track, and I would then sweat buckets for 4 or 5 hours trying to make this sound in any way like, oh, this person can sing. And then I'd send it back, and he'd then mix it the next morning, or however the time difference was. And he called up a couple of times and he said, you are a genius. You've made this person sound like they can actually sing. And there were a couple, there's one that I said, I'm not touching it. Fantasia Barrino.
Yes. Yeah.
He sent the track over and I said, James, I'm not touching it. It sounds like Aretha Franklin. Yes, it's not perfect. But if I start cleaning that up, it's lost the soul. I said, I'm leaving. Yeah. He said, good choice. And then Jennifer Hudson was like 99.9% there. As I said, a couple of notes where I just tweaked the end where it just fell off tuning. I said, these people are stellar. And then others.
I thought Fantasia was one of the best.
She was one of the best ever. And it's weird having just the vocal by itself, seeing it on the screen, actually seeing where they're singing and have it all come up on a graph and then saying, I'm not touching it there. So that was, it was an interesting experience and high pressure.
It's a very interesting thing that you're getting paid to do this auto-tuning and to sit there and micromanage the piece to a finer point. And you actually say, no, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to change it.
Right.
Well, it was almost, I'll do it if you want, but do you really want that? It's a phenomenal, sensational performance. And then you think back to all of your favorite tracks from the past where there was no auto-tune, there was no fixing, there was no kind of
let them stand alone.
Yeah. It's like, wow, the Stax stuff and the Motown stuff where it's like they go in the room, they all play, and the old blues tracks where there's a mistake, that's wrong, he's playing the wrong bass note, this is not right, it sounds fantastic.
Right.
So, and oh my God, the vocals completely overloaded. It's distorted because when they did the run through, the level was here. And then when the guy goes in, knows he's recording, sees the red light, he's singing twice as loud, all the meters, but it sounds great. So performance is everything. And that's gone now. It really has gone. Yeah. So, which is sad.
Well, the new song released by Randy Travis, and it's all AI driven. What do you think of that?
Haven't heard it, don't know about it. Randy
so
Travis?
He can't sing. He can't talk anymore.
Yeah. So they
used AI in the studio, and he took part in helping to incorporate and change it where he wants it. But it's all. It's amazing.
It's incredible
in one sense. But it's also
scary.
Is it real? is that real music?
Yeah. Well, at that point where I think it's a Japanese show where they have a 12-foot hologram and that's the artist and it's all generated, it's all fake, there's not a real person.
Incredible.
And they've released tracks and they have fans and it's like it ain't the music industry that I was involved with. It's that's what older people generally say is like, well, back in my day we used to have to but I worry about the next 10 years when AI really starts to kick in and it's like, all right, I can't tell the difference. I'm
going to throw a softball of a segue out there for Jonn. And speaking of AI and at some point you're going to be looking back, wishing you could say, if that song was mine.
It's pretty good, Mark. That was good. You knew that's one of my favorite Jonn Savannah songs. So I would like, Jonn, if you would play If Your Heart Was Mine. That would be appreciated.
I will.
All right. Jonn Savannah.
I've known you since forever, loved you from afar. When we were young, I'd watch you slamming drinks down at the bar. The guys would always hit on you whisper in your ear. You're so drunk and pretty, now let's get out of here. Trying to find a hero in that ship of fools. Little Miss Misunderstood, breaking all the rules. They'd fill you full of sweet talk and promise you the world, and you would always fall for it. You're just that kind of girl. So let me have one more drink, then you can drive my car, and I could see a paper heart burning in a jar. You got treated bad, it happened every time. I would never break your heart if your heart was mine. Now you're 10 years older, you drank the barrel dry. One too many one nights, and no tears left to cry. I watched 1,000 devils try to leave their mark on you. You made 1,000 wishes, but none of them came true. So let me have one more drink, then you can drive my car. I could see your paper heart burning in a jar. You got treated bad, it happened every time, but I could never break your heart if your heart was mine. I saw you half past broken, thinking you could not be saved. Now that clock is ticking, I regret how you behaved. You can drink my whiskey, and I can drink your wine. You know I'd never break your heart if your heart was mine. So let me have one more drink, then you can drive my car. I can mend your broken heart, 'cause I know who you are. You got treated bad, it happened every time, but I will never break your heart now that your heart is mine. I will never break your heart now that your heart is mine.
Good segue, Mark.
That's not a segue. The segue king.
All righty, Mark.
For the audience at home, if you get a chance, go back and look at some of the Seabrook Idol shows we covered and listen to it on Spotify. Jonn Savannah, you'll hear him there giving his critique and giving advice. And some of those guys are going on right now, and they're about to turn the corner into stardom.
Yeah, I've never understood why, if you're in that situation, you kind of pull back. You have to be honest. And, it's only one person's opinion. And then you suddenly say, well, I've been doing this for so long. Now I think my opinion is valid. It's got some weight to it. But you can still be wrong. But it's, my personal feeling is it's never kind of malicious. It's unless for me, when someone's not giving it everything they've got, that's a different thing. It's like, you need to bring it.
Right.
They have to bring it. But it's like, okay, these things are annoying for the audience. That doesn't work. Think about this and get closer to the mic. Whatever it is, those physical things that you have to be honest about it. But there's no way of telling someone you're not very good if they're not very good without being brutal.
Right? And we saw one of our past guests, Jimmy McWilliams,
Oh, yeah.
who took your advice, and we watched him go on to win this year's Seabrook Idol. And he is one of those guys that we think are about to take off.
I hope he does, and I'm hoping to write some stuff with him. He's up for writing some songs. So,
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a lot of potential. He's got that, the voice of the moment, that gravelly Chris Stapleton.
Yes, he does.
Teddy Swims is that those kind of voices for me will always be spectacular. They can sing anything. It's like, that sounds good, and then I'll sing it. It's like, well, that sounds okay, but it doesn't sound like that.
Speaking of Teddy Swims, I'm going out and I'm going to order that outfit that he wore, that pink suit. I
please
fucking love that suit.
Please don't.
He got all the way through.
He dropped the F-bomb.
Dropped the F-bomb, right?
That's a beautiful suit. That's a beautiful man wearing a beautiful suit.
Do you know who would wear that suit? Is our friend that introduced us to John, Francois Samard.
100% he would.
And he can pull it off. That's the thing.
Are you saying I couldn't?
Not, dude. Not like Francois.
We want to see it.
Well, then I am going.
I love
Halloween. I am going to be Francois Samad. Wearing Teddy swimsuit.
What a great Halloween! What a great Halloween costume.
Who did you come at?
And this whole thing wouldn't be so good if our WinCam Studios people weren't here. So we want to thank Maeve, Kayla, Dane, and Dave for,
making us all sound good,
look good.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but
yeah.
I mean, look at how good he is.
I didn't know this was going to be filmed.
Well, you look good.
Thank you.
You look good. And
coming to YouTube soon.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, I think we're at the end of the show. We've recorded a few songs. We've had some fun. We've had a great conversation. And most importantly, we have definitely made a good friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming in here, being our friend.